take number 2. My name is Gabriel, or Sevilla, and I would like to share what is inside. I would like to share that I believe there is a need in our society and in our individual lives to find a way to share to the world, to other people, those not just that we know, but those that we don't know, about what do we think is underneath the surface. What do we think is influencing the current state of our life and the world? And right now, what is influencing my life? I would say the fear is the mother of all poisons, all stress, all trauma. Fear of what? Well, the original spark of fear, I don't believe is really death, fear of death. I know people have that fear. But underneath death, I think, is the fear of what Marianne Williamson said is the magnificence of our own power. And what I would like to say is that many of us know that one person can have a monumental difference in the world, in changing a nation, and changing world affairs, for better or for worse. And it seems to me that one attribute of what is below the surface in attachment to this fear is the fear of how capable we are of sharing a perspective that allows for people to feel and think not only what they wish to feel or think, but also to feel and think how we could live in a state where everyone's needs are taken care of. Not just physical needs, but psychological needs. What are the psychological needs? Well, we can go by Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and there are people who work and are able to provide for themselves, but even that doesn't necessarily provide for their psychological needs. Above physical survival, you have certain levels of comfortability and security in your one's living environment, and then you have people that care for you, And I think and then you have like hobbies, fun activities that you like. And then at the top is self-actualization, which is a discovery of what is the self. What is behind our organs? What is behind our personality? A lot of people might say, oh, it's God. Or some will say, oh, it's the Big Bang and evolution. But I would like to strike a chord in relation to what is underneath the surface. And what people are wanting is someone to say that we need a new system, and we need to change our system non-violently by changing ourself, in the sense that we are not trying to validate a system that really only supports 0.1% of the population, or the top 1%, the top 2%, and in some way the top 10%. There's a broad middle class, there's a lower class. The middle class are considered the working class. But to have our needs truly met, we need someone to say that we can live in a state where there aren't economic recession and depression and collapse. There isn't, there's a way in which to minimize the extreme forms of environmental disasters. There is a way to, stop war. There's a way to minimize the interests to create war. There is a way to call out the corrupt, the narcissistic, self-centered leaders who are not just in politics, but are found in religion and science, in education, in the healthcare industry, the entertainment industry, and various other industries, especially involving business. But not to say all leaders are this way, but people are needing inspiration and an example for someone to say that our current system is not working, and that we do not accept a system that serves a small group of people who have various camouflaged ways of using terminology to sophisticate their credibility, their legality, and in some ways, their benevolence. No matter what industry it is, but especially the economic, financial, and stock industry. People are needing someone to say that when we start taking non-violent action based on unconditional love and a wisdom that is willing to illuminate the ways that our own ego, our own shadow, our subconscious, our trauma, our fear operates, often wanting to blame other people, the Illuminati, the billionaires, the politicians, the Matrix, the conservatives, the liberals, the preachers, or the white coat scientists with the glasses who live in laboratories. That is a little exaggeration. While the preachers live in temples. That's also another exaggeration, but how the ego in us works, how it wants to stop us from speaking out with unattachment to how people choose to respond, while saying that if we want a better, that if we want a better state, a better community, a better world, we actually do need to say, we, the people, need to step up and become more involved in the decision-making process. We need to start using technology in a different way, start using platforms in a different way, start using our voice in a different way. That's not just for small talk or what do they call this? Doom preaching or hellfire brimstone preaching or intellectual what do they call them? Debate lord domineering, where you're listing all these statistics, all these historical facts from a given study that oftentimes can overwhelm a person, and not understanding that with whatever situation or consciousness that we have something to bring to the table. But so oftentimes you see people from different sides inflating and aggravating the other side without trying to provide a common principle, a common target, a common state that is equally desirous of people of many different backgrounds, and which is why you have a movement for universal healthcare, universal education, universal income, initiatives that help support affordable housing, that provide jobs, that everyone should have the right to have a job in this time where so many people are applying to jobs and oftentimes are getting rejected, having this high demand but low supply, even though the rhetoric from a lot of mainstream sources suggests the opposite. And if you follow the money, oftentimes you'll see the players overseeing mainstream conglomerate corporations is to reinforce status quo, reinforce the sense that the individual, that the average person does not have a capacity to shift our state, our world, our self in a revolutionary way that is non-violent and that takes timeless principles throughout the different traditions of the world to bring to the table a way that works for the betterment of all, not just a select few. And so there are many people who are beginning to hear the words that I'm speaking to you. I'm gonna go over here. What is important is for people to talk about how they feel. How do I feel? Well, I feel better now that I'm saying something. Even though this video really may not reach a whole wide number of people, I believe that we need to be honest about our pain, and we need to try to share what underneath the surface may be causing the pain, rather than blaming politicians or it could be a wide variety of extreme people who might camouflage themselves as being mediocre, as being balanced, as being milquetoast and civil and polite and respectful, but are actually just signing laws that are paid by certain special interests to elevate their returns, their bank accounts, at the expense of the workforce of a given company, and most especially of the citizens who work for the collective economy. I'm going to pause this. Alright, we are recording again. And so I feel that it is important to form groups that help each other speak out, that help each other share what is below the surface, that help each other share sources and material that are trying to connect the dots from multiple fields to suggest that we, the people, can create a system that does not allow a small group to continue to exploit the population and inflict behavior that is always trying to edge the world into war and destruction and suffering of various kinds. Not just crime, not just addiction, which are those are critical forms of suffering, or the forces that inflict suffering. But anyways, I feel that many people feel a need to be a part of an outlet, to be a part of a network, a group that is trying to help each other have our basic needs taken care of while also reaching for our essential needs, which involve our psychology, which involve our spirituality, which involve our human rights, our divine rights, our inalienable rights given to us. Even though many can say that the Declaration of Independence is not a very valid document because science does not still prove that there is a conscious agent involved in the evolutionary process and the process of solar systems and galaxies that stretch beyond many calculations that are made in the past, even to a recent day. So, I myself can share a little bit of my pain. And that pain on the surface can be said to be of lacking financial return, or one might say traditional forms of work, even though I'm always trying to put out work. Lacking a group that is really working to help each other have our physical needs and our psychological needs. There aren't very many communities that I would say are really tightly knit and robust, partially because of the time period that we are in right now. But what do I wish to say? What is below the surface of my pain is probably a sense of abandonment, a sense of fear that if I speak out into the public, into public forums, that I will not be given opportunities to share myself with the option of being reciprocated, so that I can have my physical needs taken care of. And so I think a lot of people at this time are just barely keeping their head above the water. Whether it's psychologically or physically or both, I feel it is very important at this time for people to just share, to any platform, any outlet, any source that has the potential to reach other people that we don't know. Even if there is a harsh rejection, or there is types of humiliation, types of rebuttal that are very aggressive, hostile, and perhaps intellectually domineering. I feel what is below the surface is a call for us to continue to speak out, knowing that somehow, some way, there will be more people to join in and desire something similar beyond what we have seen through the repetition of history, be it revolutions or wars, scandals and schemes, plots of assassination, murder and mayhem, etc., twisting the records of history to favor a small group of people who are often always trying to profit off of the majority, the people. Oftentimes they are bankers in alliance with bureaucrats, which are tied to, well, I don't want to talk about this next thing, but what is below the surface, I think, is a community that is unconscious of how connected it is, how relatable it is. What is beneath the surface is a certain call, a certain echo, that when voiced over time may allow us to actually achieve a particular community that works consciously together. And this sounds very simplistic, but on one side of life, simplicity is the principle that runs experience. It might very well run intelligence. And at the same time, complexity, I believe, is a factor in the creation of life. So, where does this leave us right now? Who is this video going to? What is my desired end result? Aren't there more specific pieces of information to help people know exactly what our history is and where history began to become twisted, and how in our modern era we can actually provide steps for how we can create a system that offers everyone basic rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, to the evolution of our awareness, of consciousness itself. So I can continue talking, but the question that I think a lot of us ask at this time is, are we talking to educate other people? Or are we kind of talking to educate everyone, including ourselves, at the same time, to something that is new and different, that sheds a story that may often be unheard of, suggestive that something profound can happen in our day-to-day lives rather than just going through the ropes and just surviving and believing that a small group of people will take care of our problems. Some people might say there's a small group of people that might save us, or a prophet or a messiah. So there's a lot of people that believe a lot of different things. Let's go to the edge of this building. We're gonna keep going. Oh, this is as far as we can go. Okay. So, and I feel that there is a need for groups, networks, communities to help each other study, even though a lot of people study on their own time, personally, by themselves. And there's a lot of material on the internet now where people are sharing different material, sharing various specially crafted videos and PowerPoints for all sorts of different types of information with the technology that we have. And so what I am sharing is merely what I am wanting. For what we give in some form is what we are asking for. But you can't just say, oh, I want $1 million and I want a tightly knit community that lives in a natural or more nature-based vicinity that is able to fairly consistently provide valuable goods and services to people in more urban spaces, while maintaining a revolutionary, nonviolent foundation for shifting society by shifting ourselves, because we might be able to come to a recognition behind all the religions and behind quantum physics, and various other scientists that have lived before, centuries ago, suggesting that there is a universal animating agent, force, that is coalescing our atoms, our stars, into cyclical motion that is evolving consciousness, that is evolving awareness, and our choices of experimentation to that which favors the whole rather than a small group or ourselves, which works kind of both ways. So I had a lot of pain today, a lot of questions about how can I elevate my physical and psychological needs. How can I help myself and help others? How can I get to a more ideal situation where there is a network or group or multiple groups that are wanting to help each other interact with people who may be on the fence in regards to how we can have an economy that is regulated by the government, that doesn't charge interest rates, and that is seeking people to create businesses and experiments and projects that are geared towards making life better, lessening suffering, bringing more awareness to our similarities than our differences. Even though diversity is important, we should not create a homogeneous society based on ideological or external phenomena. But I do feel the government has a responsibility to protect and support its people. But on the flip side, the journey of humanity is recognizing that the people are the government. And that's kind of the long haul here, but how we can create an economy, or how we can interact with people who are on the fence about creating an economy that favors the whole, not these financial instruments, more collateralized debt obligations, credit default swaps, and other forms of trading that are not necessarily exclusively bad, but within them there are many holes that allow, or paths, I don't know what to call them, buffer zones for those who are wanting to make as much money as possible without having transparency of what they are actually doing. That we deserve an economy where the government is trying to help people start businesses, or trying to help people get their needs taken care of, while prioritizing creativity and psychological development, and how we need groups to help each other learn and practice for how we can interact with people who are more rigid, more extreme, more hostile, who might be leaders in intellectual fields, in university settings, in bureaucratic institutions and settings. How we deserve a government that calls for the there's a certain word for it. Maybe is it proliferation? For the minimization, the de-escalation of military armaments, nuclear weapons, and infrastructure, without completely abolishing what we have, but calling for the need for unilateral agreements to de-escalate and abolish over time those things that we have that destroy life. And I feel over time the superpowers will be able to come to an agreement. But for now, things are a little hot. But I do feel we need groups to help each other relate to people who are more in traditional forms of living, of understanding a religion, of understanding the material paradigm that says everything that exists and has been created is a cause of a material event that can only be explained in material terms, not spiritual, not metaphysical, not artistic or poetical forms. So, what else do I have to say? What else do you have to say? For we are one. And could it be that you are also speaking through me while I, not knowingly, have these impulses to release what I would consider is condensed and compounded bundles of energy? So anyways, what do we want? What are we willing to say to help us achieve more confidence to acquire what it is that we wish, that we want? What types of actions? Okay. I'm having a wonderful audio transmission of combustion engines. Do I have anything else to say? I hold a vision for the internet. Oh, there's going to be some more noise here. That there will be more spaces to connect people who live more closely together. There's already some movement towards this, but it's still lacking. That our own perspectives on life will be able to be more available to those people who are locally around us. Because right now there's a lot of resistance for people to physically interact with people around them, and that our jobs for the most part take up the most amount of our energy in relation to interacting with people. And it can be very difficult in a job because sometimes you're not allowed to play or have brief moments to talk. Sometimes people are just working, working, working. Sometimes there's moments to talk, but anyways. Is there anything else that I would like to share that I have not shared? I feel like there's always a job, and it may not always pay, but there's always something that we can do that can help the situation that many of us face. In fact, every person faces, even though there will always be some that deflect and deny and snap back in anger, that one would even bring up the idea that certain groups of people who are the most wealthy are actually the most in pain. Even though they are the ones usually that are the least likely to accept help. So, is there anything else that I would like to say? I was talking about work. And it's been said that work will, in some ways, become more difficult in these cycles of inequality that are continually evolving to reinforce the status quo of a small group of people and their privileged positions, their luxurious affluence. And so it seems like there will be a more difficult time for most people in obtaining their physical needs because what I just said, there will be more pressure for people to have to exert whatever energy they are required in order to get their physical needs taken care of. And this, I think, is a call for a cycle of rehabilitation, of programs and initiatives and grassroots movements to come together, to talk together, to, I guess, stand together and truly ignite a union, an alliance. A type of movement that really calls for a new paradigm to be considered and applied in the real world. A paradigm that honors equal share of work, not just some who are sitting at a desk all day and writing signatures on a paper for a certain legislation that they've been bribed by. A movement that tries to coalesce all the world's knowledge, wisdom, and love into a point that gives hope and promise that there is a way to assist the concentrated urban chaos from which most people are living in a type of every man for themselves, even families. And these communities we might be a little bit more attracted to if they honor a pledge to continue trying to help those people who are lost. And that will probably be for another conversation. But anyways, there is an essential need for spaces of rehabilitation that the government so continues to delay. And we know the government for a long time has been very influenced by special interests, self-centered interests, and what we are reaping today is the ignorance of the many, from seeing how religions and institutions have largely been aimed to divide and conquer. And so, I don't think I have anything else to say. I've shared my piece. And perhaps we will be able to agree on more things here, and maybe be able to collaborate. But for now, that is all I can say. Thank you for listening. If you made it this far. If you didn't, that's okay. But if you made it this far, I feel that our frequency will continue to attract something so profound in our own lifetime. And if you feel like you're at the end of your lifetime and you haven't found something profound, I still believe you will be able to. Because the energy of this type of communication is harboring an experience that is profound, that suggests there really is no ultimate need to fear and to judge anything as being something that should not be happening, because on some level we recognize we live in a vast universe that could have vast histories, vast records for who we are and how this planet came to be, while at the same time honoring that evil has reached its time to be gone. Forces of aggression, manipulation, of warmongering, fearmongering, trolling, bullying, objectifying, idolizing, of more and more, rather than sharing based on unconditional love and equality. I want to say thank you. May there be a whole new world given birth. Anytime we can give birth to a voice that calls for our heart to balance our mind and our reaction to what we think controls our mind. So it is. Amen.